Progressive talk, where facts matter.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am green.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show, WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It's a joy to be with you today. I want you to call me. I want to hear your voices on this fabulous Friday. 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. Of course, we're talking about President Trump. I guess the vice keeps getting tighter, or the game keeps getting sharper. It appears, unless someone changes their mind, that the arrest warrant, not the arrest warrant, but the warrant for the search of the president's home is going to be released today. So we'll know what they were looking for. We might know what potential crime, or what crime they believe, or crimes they believe have been committed. So we will see. I want to know what your thoughts are. I want you to call me at 773-763-9278 and meet the Morning Stars on the Santita Jackson and Friends page on Facebook and on the Santita Jackson Show on YouTube. Everybody get on over to YouTube, if you will. The Santita Jackson and Friends page, Santita Jackson Show on YouTube. I want you to get on over there. And then we're going to be talking economics, inflation. You know, inflation is driving so much money problems. That's driving so much of the pain out here. Many people argue that drove us to Barack Obama as president. It drove us to Bernie Sanders. That was part of the attraction of his campaign in 2016, and Donald Trump in 2016 as well. We want someone to make our lives better. So I want to know what your thoughts are as we talk with Dr. Max Wolf about inflation. And more and more Americans are saying no to college. They're saying it's not worth it. Wow. Now, some people are academically talented or inclined. Some people are vocationally inclined. People have different gifts. And so I certainly believe that your gifts, whatever they are, need to be honed. But there's something to be said about higher education, whatever your gifts are. And if people are pulling back on that, basically because it costs too much, what is that saying about our society? Got a lot to talk about today. Hey, Mark. Hey, Andre. Hey, Dave Dowling, sending you much love. And Shireen. And what is that, Mark over there? And Lorraine, Linear Bob. Hey. Robert Williams, sending you all much love today. Everybody, please like and share the show. At least with one person. Like and share the show. And those of us in Radio Land, those of you in Radio Land, please like and share the show. Tell somebody about us. And, we're bumping into more and more people every day who are part of the Santita Jackson Show family, and we're so grateful to have you. So, and I hope you'll join me on Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson at 7 o'clock. Go to iHeart, get the iHeart app, and get the Keep Hope Alive show here, live from 7 to 9 every Sunday. I work all the time, everybody. Chicago will have a high of 75 degrees today. It will be cloudy. Minneapolis, St. Paul, a high of 74 degrees, and it will rain. The Dow closed up 27 points yesterday. The NASDAQ closed down 74 points, and the S&P 500 closed down just shy of 3 points. In Major League Baseball, the Royals bested the White Sox 5-3. The Cubs are triumphant over Cincinnati 4-2, and the Twins will be playing the Angels later on today. In the WNBA, the Aces were triumphant over the Sky 89-78, and the Lynx will be facing off against the Storm later on today. The United States Postal Service is gearing up for another busy holiday season for the third year in a row. The U.S. Postal Service said it will temporarily increase prices on a variety of mail services, everybody. Support our postal workers, if you will. The CDC is no longer recommending restrictive measures such as quarantines and social distancing to prevent the spread of COVID-19. In new guidelines released yesterday, the agency said it is no longer necessary to stay at least 6 feet away from others to reduce the risk of exposure, a shift from the guidance that had been in place since the early days of the pandemic. Now, more than 2 years later, nearly the entire U.S. population has at least some immunity through vaccination, previous infection, or in some cases, both, according to the CNN report. However, the latest guidance does keep some measures the same. It says people who test positive should stay at home for at least 5 days and wear a mask around others for 10 days. It also continues to recommend that people wear masks indoors in about half the country. I'm going to be asking Dr. Knighton about that because it's a whole lot, everybody. Following the FBI search of former President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate on Monday, U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland said that the Justice Department has requested that the warrant and property receipt from the search be unsealed. Former President Trump said in an online post on Thursday that he would not oppose the release of the documents. He added, quote, "I am going a step further by encouraging," his emphasis, "the immediate release of those documents." And so we will see what is going to happen here. We will see what is going to happen here. In the meantime, it looks like someone took President Trump very seriously as he has been talking about the FBI. Did you see what happened yesterday? Officers killed a gunman, Mr. Schiffer, who wearing body armor. He tried to get into the FBI's Cincinnati field office on Thursday. It sparked an hours-long standoff that ended when he was gunned down after firing at officers. The man tried to enter the visitor center. Mr. Ricky Schiffer tried to enter the visitor screening center at 9:15 a.m., according to the FBI, activating an alarm and triggering a heavy law enforcement response. He was able to get out of that building. He fled in a white Ford Crown Victoria onto the interstate, leading officers on a chase, firing in their direction. And it's amazing. They didn't kill him on the premises. Think about that, everybody. Think about that. Think about Jayland Walker, shot at 90 times, shot more than 60 times over a traffic violation. And this man walked into the FBI headquarters in Cincinnati and was able to walk out alive. They only killed him in the chase. So think about that, everybody. We've got a lot of other news, and we're going to get to Pastor Tisha Dixon Williams. We just love her. We love the good news that she gives us because it's she's got a special anointing, everybody. I encourage you to get her book. I See You, Sis. I See You, Sis. I promise you it will bless you. I got several copies for some friends, and I've sent them all out. I've got about 10 copies for everybody, and they love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. I See You, Sis, everybody. And of course, we have the conference next week, and we're working out my keynote, my little talk there. That's what I'll call it. I'm going to be with my family because my Aunt Evelyn is going to be funeralized on that day and buried, and she's been so kind to accommodate me as I'm going to be with my family and my uncle and my cousins, and and have a homegoing service for my beloved Aunt Evelyn Jackson Hurst. So, Pastor, talk to me. Give me some good news, because every day there's something crazy, Pastor. Every single day. I've got whiplash.
Every day, something new, right? Good morning, everyone.
Every day, as they say. Every day. It's crazy.
Every day there's something new. But we are grateful today. Thank you so much, Santita, for allowing me the opportunity, and certainly to all of the morning staff and the listeners, good morning to you. I want to talk today a little bit about who is he and what is he to you. In a scenario in the Bible, we look at Jesus walking with his disciples, and Jesus asked a very pivotal question. He asked, who do people say the Son of Man is? And they give different answers. Some say you're Elijah, some say you're a prophet, all of these different things. And then he asked a follow-up question to his disciples and said, who do you say I am? To which Peter, almost as if he's on a game of Jeopardy, buzzes in first and says, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. And this is interesting because Peter lives up to his impulsive nature in this moment with an answer that impresses Jesus by emphatically edifying Jesus' nature. And yet I find it gives me pause And I'll tell you why. If John had jumped at the chance, I'd find it more justified, as John's love never wavered. However, with Peter, I find myself leery of his admission, because when it comes to Jesus, his emotional state always seems to be in opposition. Let me prove it to you. In this shining moment, Jesus lauds Peter for his divine revelation. But in the very next chapter of the book, Jesus insists that Peter get behind him. In this particular moment, Peter declares Jesus as the Christ, but in a few more chapters, he's going to be cursing and emphatically denying Jesus, saying he has no connection to that criminal. And I can hear people saying, "You're right, Pastor, about Peter. Peter did do that," and we're nodding and we're coming against Peter in our spirits right now. But if we think for a moment, how many of us can find ourselves in Peter's shoes in this moment? How many of us vacillate from moment to moment with Jesus when the vicissitudes of life vary from valley to victory? We can tell the truth. We waver in our worship. We are hesitant with our hallelujahs. We dither in our devotions. We can put ourselves in Peter's place today. Who is he and what is he to you? Come on, you guys know what I'm talking about. If you've ever prayed this prayer, Jesus, if you get me out of this one, I'll never do it again. We make that promise, and before we know it, Jesus works a miracle. You get out and then find yourself right back in. Because sometimes we have to be honest. We want the Christ of fish and 5 loaves, not the one of prayer and fasting. We want the Christ of compassion, not conviction. We want the Christ of Cana, not of the cross. And if that's you today, I want to encourage you, because there is good news. Because Jesus can firm up the most fleeting of faith. How do I know? Because he did it for Peter. He then turns around and says, "Peter, you are a rock." Even though Peter would show signs of instability at times, he still names him the rock. So only Jesus can take a rickety faith and make it rock solid. Only Jesus can take a faith that's fair weather and flimsy and make it the fortified foundation of his church. And I'm so glad today that he can do the same thing for you. I don't know who's on this line today. I don't know where you find yourself going back and forth and wavering, but I want you to know the greatness that was revealed in that moment by Peter was already revealed inside of him long ago. And I can hear Jesus saying to someone right now, I don't care how flimsy you feel right now, how unstable you feel right now. I don't care what other people have said about you. Here's what I say about you. Jesus is saying, let me tell you who you really are. They say you're ratchet. He says you're righteous. They say you're depraved. He says you're delivered. They say you're sinful. He says you're saved. They say you're irreparable. He says you're irresistible. They say you're abandoned. He says you are adopted. They say you're forsaken. He says you're forgiven. They say you're unlovable. He says you're unstoppable. And when people say you're worthless, he says you're worth dying for. And so I just want to let somebody know today that who Jesus is depends on who you ask. And what will you say if people ask it of you? I hope somebody will say that I'm delivered, I'm set free, I'm abundant, and even in my times of flimsiness, Jesus helps me make a firm foundation. And that's the good news.
Amen to that. Amen to that. No. Amen to that. Amen to that. Because, part of what I want to share with people next week, and what I try to share every day, I think the older I get, the more I don't mind being vulnerable, Pastor. Because I don't feel the need to be perfect. When I was a child, I was the good girl. I was the ultimate good girl. And my identity was wrapped up in that. So when I got to college, I hit a lot of bumps. And my father said, you can't be my baby when you're making A's and my B when you're struggling. He said, there's something going on and Daddy wants to be here for you. He is really at your best he's at his best when you are at your worst. I will absolutely give him that. If your back is against the wall, he's going to be right there, calling you at 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning, getting you up, encouraging. I mean, my father took a week off when I had life-saving surgery and went with me to California. He got there before anybody. And I think that there's a part of so many of us, if not all of us, certainly most of us, where we feel unworthy. And it's so important that someone, I mean, that you know that there is someone who came and felt that for all that you are and all that you are not, I love you, and I'm willing to give my life for you.
That's right.
And I want
That's
to
right.
thank you for that message today, because we need that. We need to know that we are worthy of someone,
And
of
we are.
God's child, giving his life for you. Gave it. It was taken, but he said, no, I'll give it. I'll
That's
give it.
right.
And, and Dad, forgive
right.
them. They don't know what they're doing. I've been human.
Right. That's right.
Woo-hoo.
Yes. Yes.
These folks are a little nuts. And so when I get back up there, I'm going to tell you all about it. God
I
said,
love it.
God said, no. I already know all about it. I'm glad you figured it out. Now you can come on home. And that's what
right.
happened. That's at least that's my interpretation of the story. And so I just want to thank you for that message today. I want to thank you for that message today. I want to thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the blessing. Thank you for that. Thank you. Everybody, somebody out there, I don't care what your faith commitment is. Carol Soskin, my sister out in Los Angeles. I love you, Carol. Carol is Jewish. She doesn't miss a Christmas without wishing me blessings on Christmas. You just love people, and you appreciate the traditions that got them to a place where everybody meets.
That's right.
Okay. So, and I just want to thank Carol for that, because boy, she called me. I'd been on the air for a few months, and she said, "Look, I want to reach out to you for Christmas." I said, "Happy Hanukkah to you. Love you, girl. But thank you, and thank you. I see you, sis. How can people attend your conference next week?"
Sure. You can attend our conference virtually. If you feel like making a trip to the Hamptons in New York, feel free. But I'd love for the Morning Stars and all of the listeners to join us virtually. If you go to Who's That Lady, min.com, you'll be able to see Who's That Lady in the Hamptons. Just click on there and you can join us virtually. We're excited to have you.
Well,
and it is August 20th.
That's right. I'm going to be there
Saturday,
virtually.
Yeah.
I was looking forward to being in the Hamptons. Girl, please.
I know.
Don't worry. Well, I'm going to see you. I might see you in the next few hours even. But I love you, Pastor Tisha
Love
Dixon
you.
Williams. Everybody get the book. I see you, sis. It will bless you. It will bless you. It will bless you. We have got Dr. Shanina Knight, and we're always so excited to have her. She's been on the road, and she's a nurse, scientist, researcher, infection preventionist. And she's been at Case Western Reserve University teaching. And now she's got this tremendous position where she's the executive director of the IPC Research Practice and Prevention Center. And she is really getting the opportunity to be on a platform worldwide to talk about infection prevention. And we're so proud of her and so excited for her. And we need her now, because the CDC now is no longer recommending restrictive measures, 6 feet apart. It's a shift in the guidance, if you will, Dr. Knight, and it's a big shift. They said that nearly the entire U.S. population has at least some immunity through vaccination or previous infection, in some cases both. And yet so many people who've been vaxxed and boosted, they have COVID and they are hospitalized. What should we do with these new recommendations? Because it seems to me that the corporate structure is very eager for us to return to normal, even as this virus still rages.
Oh, good morning, Santita.
Good
I was
morning.
going to say, the thing is, I know we talked about this a while ago about COVID being endemic, which means that it will come to a point in time where people understand that it is something that we will be living with. That does not mean let up on your preventative practices. But the guidelines and the information that we had, which was telling us about deaths, not necessarily hospitalizations, according to the information that is being received, has decreased significantly enough in order for them to make the call. Now, do I agree with it? I'm not 100% sure, only because I know that we have not encountered our flu season, where we know that last year COVID kind of took on the same pattern. And so as we continue to think through what is best, it's honestly, they'll just have to keep watching the numbers, and we have to understand that as people, science evolves and science changes, the evidence changes, which changes the recommendations. So if we get stuck on the CDC's decision right now and say, oh, well, they just told us this a couple of months ago, and then start to have distrust in the system, we can have as much distrust as we want to, but COVID not going away. So it's for us to really understand that the science is going to constantly be evolving and that we should be watching it and also be nimble to decisions changing and understand that that nimbleness means that we may have to change how we live and how we function. But as of right now, like the biggest thing for me is even if they're saying drop protocols, we've learned within the last 2 years why it's important for us to be the CEO of our own health, to make our own health decisions. We've learned how to keep each other safe. So at this point, should we decide that we're just going to drop all protocols because that's what the CDC said, you have to ask yourself, based off of the environments that you work in, play in, and live in, if it's worth it to you. So my recommendations are, if you still are practicing hand hygiene, keep practicing it. Remember that COVID is not the only pathogen. Same thing when it comes to mask wearing. We will be indoors at some point. I still do recommend that if you are in crowded settings, indoor or outdoor, when I say outdoor, meaning you literally are breathing on the next person, then these are times for which you may actually use a mask correctly, and that could actually help as another decreasing measure. Of course, physically distancing, which comes in my last comment that I just made about the mask, is also important. And something that's also important, but I feel is rarely discussed, is environmental cleaning. So that is making sure that you are aware that commonly touched surfaces such as counters, such as doorknobs, such as rails on the escalator are also touched by other individuals. And so for whatever reason you can't clean those spaces, make sure that you're cleaning your hands before and after use of each of those items. And then too, right now, even in the midst of monkeypox, this going to sound like a crazy recommendation, and we can talk about it at some point. But if you know you're going to be somewhere where your elbows and your arms is going to be exposed to others, bring a jacket just in case, so that way at least your bare skin is not coming in contact with the possibility that someone infected skin may come in contact with your skin and that direct contact.
Well, just very quickly, let me ask you this, because I literally have 30 seconds. Wearing that jacket, does that mean that when you get home, you wash the jacket or put it in the dry cleaners? 30 seconds.
Wash it. It can be washed in a washing machine. The most important thing is you being conscious about how you're handling it. Washing your hands before you take it off, washing your hands after you take it off, but making sure that even after, let's say you put it in the washer, making sure that the lid of the washing machine is clean, as well as the buttons on the washing machine is clean, or any devices that you touch until that item is washed.
Everybody, we just have to be vigilant. We have to be vigilant. Let's talk about what's happening with the latest in the Trump investigation. Wow, it's getting hotter and hotter and hotter. And then we had this Ohio man who did what? He went in to attack the FBI in Cincinnati. What is going on, everybody? Let's talk about it on the Santita Jackson Show. Back in just a minute. Thank you, Doctor. I just saw this in the headlines, in the CNN headlines, that they are eliminating, all of those requirements. And but people have gone on anyway. They have. But, it's a lot. So I just thought I'd put that your way. Thank you so much. You home now?
Yes, I am.
Praise the Lord. I know your family. I know they're glad to see mommy home.
Yeah, they are. Oh, it's been a long day yesterday, though, when I made it here. Ooh.
I hear you. I hear you. Look, I caught you
Mhm.
when I caught you packing. I said, bless her heart.
Listen, the little one like, Mom, can we watch a movie? I'm like, oh my gosh.
You know, when my mother would travel, she stopped traveling a lot when we were young. You know, like, because people would ask her to go on and do speaking engagements, and she would, she just started turning those down because she wanted to stabilize us. But when we got to high school, when the oldest she started doing just a little bit more, but not a whole lot. And we were so excited to have her home. And she would just get this look like the doe in the headlights, like, wait a minute. I've been out here with all these people. We're like, mommy, 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 mom, 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 mama. It's just like, goodness gracious, I don't know how you do it. But I'm glad that you're home and you've got such a beautiful family, wonderful husband, beautiful children. God bless you.
Oh, thank you so much, Auntie, and God bless you too.
God bless you, sweetie. Love you much.
I love you.
Make sure you get some rest.
Oh, trust me, I'm so looking forward to this weekend. It's gonna be the first weekend I've been at home in a long time.
Oh yeah, I'm like, don't talk about me about sleep hygiene.
Yeah. Trust me, don't worry. I'm gonna be all the way caught up. Ain't never been so happy.
Whew, I wish, but I'm going to work something out. I am. I am. Oh, and I'll tell you because I had a nice talk with my doctor, which was very good. So I'm working a lot of things out. So that's a good thing. So I love you, sweetie.
You should. That's important.
No,
I love you too, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right, sweetie. But get some rest because you sound a little tired today.
No, I can't. I'm up for today. I got work.
Oh, I know. But just if you can even take 5 minutes, just separate for a minute.
For me.
Ain't that nothing? I know.
Look, you know how they say something, the all or nothing person. I'm an all or nothing chick. Don't give me a little piece of cake and then tell me it's good and say that's all I can have. I want to know where the rest of the cake is at.
I know what you mean.
So it's just like, so I got to leave it all the way alone in order for me to behave.
That's why I know you can't say anything to me when you get on me about rest. Girl, I get your messages at 2 and 3 in the morning. I'm like, yeah. And 11 and 12, yeah.
But I might have had one of the long naps that I'm telling you about that day.
Yeah. But you know what? I fall asleep, and that's not good because you just need to. But I found out, that there's some things I need to do to. There's a reason that I've been so extra tired, and so I'm working on that now. So, everybody, go to your doctors. Please get your tests so that you can know exactly where your bodies are. Please do that, everybody. So I'm gonna let you go, Dr. Knighton. I love you. And who is this? Okay. People call me in the middle of my show. Shanina.
We're coming back.
Okay, who do we have? Okay.
Everybody except for Jones and Fancher.
Okay.
Fancher needs a half hour.
Oh yeah, Fancher's at 7. I'm sorry, I should have told you that.
Yeah, and then Jones, I'm going to call right now. He didn't pick up the first time.
Thank you.
Gotta save the children. We can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show, or should I say welcome back. Let's talk about the latest in the Trump investigation, really. On Monday, everything changed. The FBI raided/searched Mar-a-Lago, the private club, members-only club, where President Trump has his primary residence. And people are wondering this was unprecedented. Some people are celebrating it and saying, well, you know what that means, that no man or woman is above the law in the United States. Some people are saying, well, this is a political witch hunt. People are trying to keep him from running for president again. I want to know what your thoughts are, because a lot of people have a lot of feelings, and a lot of folks who come out of the civil rights movement look at the FBI with an arched eye, still, after all this time. And then some people are saying, well, we need to trust them. And I just want to know what you're saying. Many folks have also said that U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland needs to come out and say something. And so finally, yesterday, he did. And he said, I personally approved this search. And he plans to unseal the Trump warrant. If he unseals it, and President Trump, at least for now, has said, I completely support it. I completely support it. Of course, he can change his mind. I don't know if that would change the fact that it will be unsealed, but that is left to a judge. So we want to know what's in the documents. Some people are saying that nuclear secrets were in the documents. Others are saying, some of President Trump's supporters are saying that these are documents that he declassified before taking them out the White House. So there's a lot that is here. There's a lot that is here, and we need to know what's going on. In the meantime, a lot of people are feeling all kinds of ways. You had Ricky Schiffer, a young man in Ohio who tried to breach the FBI office in Cincinnati, and he was able to walk out of the building alive. He was led on a car chase, shooting at the police and the FBI, and he was finally killed. Ricky Schiffer, someone who was at the January 6th affair as well. So there's a whole lot that's going on. A lot of chatter that is now manifesting. It's not just chatter. The word is becoming flesh, if you will. So I want you to call me. Let me know what you think is going on. 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. We've got a tremendous panel to help us to deal with this today. And before we do, let's go to Chaparral. You're going to have some good food next week. You have been taking a bit of a break, but now celebrations by us will be back up on Monday. Chaparral, what's going on?
Yes, we will, Santita, and thank you so much. We'll be back and open and available to serve all of our customers August 15th on Monday. So don't hesitate to give us a call at 708-526-4546. Whether you need your sweet tables, your balloon arches, your catering needs, we still provide full menu: ribs, chicken, mostaccioli, mac and cheese, green beans, as well as our cakes, our pies, and our cobblers. So don't hesitate to call us at 708-526-4546, 708-526-4546. We look forward to serving you. Thank you so much, Santita.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for my oxtails last week. Love it. Everybody, let's talk about President Trump. Call us at 773-763-9278. What does this mean? Indeed, some historians gathered with President Biden, who warned him about the threats to democracy. Indeed, they compared the time that we are living in to the pre-Civil War era, that this is akin to the lead up to the breakup of the country and a full-out civil war. Roughly half of the country feels one way, the half of the other country feels another way, but I think that those numbers might even be deceptive, because I think that the approach that we need to have to people and how they feel about President Trump is far more nuanced than the corporate media gives it credit for being. So let's get to attorney C.K. Hoffler, she's not with us today, Attorney Janice Mathis, the executive director, brilliant civil rights lawyer, the attorney who is now the head of the National Council of Negro Women. Of course, we have got Dwight McKee, who predicted all of this all along, Attorney Darrell Jones, brilliant civil rights lawyer who is the chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition. Let me start with you, Attorney Janice Mathis. And I want to start with you, Janice, because as I was sharing with you yesterday, now to fully disclose, I've known Janice all of my life, and her father was one of my father's mentors, someone who really guided him through life. Someone he needed desperately as a father figure, and we just thank God for the Mathis family and all that they've meant to us down through the years. I said, as a Southerner, I think you see America very clearly, because when you get to the South, you've got the color line. When you get to the South, you've got the class line. When you get to the South, you have vast wealth and vast poverty and some middle class. I mean, you see America when you get to the South. And my mother, who was just driving through the South, said, just to me 2 weeks ago, she said, look, I don't know what people are telling you, but just given the fact that you're on the radio every day, I think that you need to know that Trump's power has not dissipated. As she drove from Washington through Virginia, through North Carolina into South Carolina, she said, I'm seeing huge signs, billboard signs with Trump on it. So talk to me about what's happening with him in the Department of Justice now. Attorney Janice Mathis.
Good morning. Good morning, Santita, and thank you for the very kind words, and good morning to your guests, who are all friends and colleagues. The South has a perspective that is different. It is rooted in strong resentments, class and race resentment. When people start talking about comparing what's going on now to the pre-Civil War period, you think in 1849, 1850, some 10 years before the war began, there was a Fugitive Slave Act. South Carolina, along with Virginia, were two of the wealthiest states in the nation. And that wealth was built on the backs of enslaved Africans who were growing cotton and tobacco and indigo and corn, wealthier than Wall Street. That wealth was threatened because enslaved people were leaving the plantations. They were getting to freedom any way that they could. And so the Fugitive Slave Act said, you will apprehend them and bring our property back to us. But people resisted all across the country, and this part is rarely spoken about. All across the nation, people rose up and contested the fugitive slave law in local and state courts, all up and down the eastern seaboard and in the Midwest, so much so that they clogged up the business of the courts, and the courts couldn't operate for enslaved people and people who were Black who were not enslaved, contesting efforts to return them to southern states. This is like a fever that festers in this region to this day. There was resentment, you talk about class resentment. In our home state of South Carolina, there was class resentment because in the upland of South Carolina, in the hilly areas, you couldn't grow cotton. You needed flat, sandy terrain in order to have productive cotton production. So there was resentment of those hillbillies against the John C. Calhoun. And if you don't know who John C. Calhoun is, we don't have time to go into it this morning. But suffice to say, he was the author and finisher of states' rights and nullification, who was a United States Senator from South Carolina for decades. So you got all this resentment stew. Then you send off, the Civil War comes, and 700,000 Americans are killed in a fight that very few of them had a stake in, which was the preservation of the Southern agrarian, aristocratic, large planter system. And in 5 years' time, South Carolina went from being one of the wealthiest states to one of the poorest. That's what we're seeing reenacted now, and it's time for a people of goodwill of every political persuasion to stand up and say, yeah, democracy may not be perfect. We're still in the process of perfecting it, but what shall we replace it with when it is destroyed?
What do you make of this back and forth, before I go to the rest of the panel, this back and forth that we're hearing? What do you make of what happened on Monday? I mean, and now they're going to unseal the warrant. Unsealing the warrant will do what?
Well, the joke is this, Santita. The warrant, unseal the warrant, Mr. Trump has it within his power to release the information today, right now. Mm-hmm. He doesn't need to wait until the court says unseal it. It feels as if it's not quite, it feels disingenuous to me. And while the FBI is not the most trustworthy agency, I don't think Merrick Garland's going to waste his career and his reputation on a fake raid into Mar-a-Lago. When they went down there, they've been down there several times. They've asked for this material several times. and they can't get it. Let's see what's there, and let's judge it on the merits, judge it on the fact.
Well, Dwight McKee, your thoughts about this?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I think that we have to, I agree with Sister Mathis, we have to judge it and see what was there before we can come to any conclusion about what the president has done and what his intentionality was in doing it, because it only becomes criminal if he had criminal intent. But what the undertone of it all is was the raid, the motives of the raid. There are two levels of this. One is with his motives for not turning the information in, but secondly, the FBI's motives for the raid in the first place. Why would you need 30 FBI agents searching for 9 to 10 hours somebody's residence, unless it's something dire like are they really looking for some legitimate stolen evidence, or were they looking to discourage him from running for the presidency, or were they looking to dissuade him from being the candidate and the front runner? And so I think that, one, we have to look in one eye with Donald Trump, who he is and what he's about. But at another level, it's a lot real suspect that they would make such a big deal out of these files when, each president has their own library. They have 2 or 3 million pieces of historic evidence and historic documents that Obama's put in his files. And every president has his own library with his own information in, much of which he decided what goes in. And so we have to see how much of that was Donald Trump in anticipating of his library, or Donald Trump trying to hide evidence because he's under investigation for January 6th.
Hadn't thought of it that way. Attorney Darrell Jones, your thoughts?
Yeah, good morning, Santita. I agree with much of what Dwight McKee has said. But, I think the more interesting part with dealing with the search warrant in this case is, what an incredible, unusual step for for Merrick Garland to take to ask for it, to be released to the public, to have it opened up, and it just triggers in my mind several things. Right, one of the things that it triggers is that it tells us that whoever the target is that they were looking for, let's say the target, is Trump or is not Trump, whoever the target is, by them saying they want to unseal the search warrant is an indication that they have identified all the targets that they need, because that information would be contained within the documents that make up the affidavit, the return of the warrant. All of those documents make up the search warrant. So they're saying that whatever target is out there, they're comfortable at this point that whoever their target is, that they've identified them. They're also indicating that they're not concerned at this point of any other evidence being destroyed that would be related, because typically what would happen in a search warrant is that you're identifying the pieces. Why is it important to go into this residence? What is it that you're looking for? Is it connected to anything else? What is it that led you to the point of believing that this is where you need to go? All of that becomes disclosed. So if there are pieces that were not done yet, meaning that if there were people that they were going for, issues that they were going after that were not completed by the time they unseal this warrant, they're now releasing that information so that those people that they would be looking for, that information that they would be seeking, could potentially be destroyed, or if there are people leaving and doing other things. what Merrick Garland is signifying by saying that they're ready to unseal this warrant is that they're now ready to release all of this information, that the focus point of this investigation is at a point where they're ready to, if they're going to charge somebody, they're ready to charge because they've identified all the conspirators and whoever else that's there. So this is an incredible step in that regard. And as we go deeper into it, if we're dealing with nuclear secrets, as has been indicated or inferred, and you're dealing with nuclear codes that could be there, the intenseness of it, it just raises so high and just goes up so high with that. And then because there's so many levels to this, because then you have to factor in that, we talked about the public's interest in knowing, but I think that even more important than that is that this is a situation where Merrick Garland and all the federal prosecutors know that once a candidate has announced for the presidency, that's pretty much going to suspend any other investigation that the feds are doing at that point, because you're in that election cycle at that point. So they had to decide to strike now before there was any announcement like that. And they've have all these pieces that they've put together. So, hopefully at 3:00 Eastern Standard Time today, we'll know if President Trump is or his attorneys, more perhaps is how it would be phrased, are going to object to the affidavit and the search warrant becoming unsealed. And that's going to be huge because, in my estimation, the former president then is in a position that if he objects to, or through his counsel, I know they're saying that he individually won't, but he may direct his attorneys to do it. So his attorneys then object to the search warrant being unsealed. Then at that point, the public perception then becomes, what is he hiding? What is it that's in there that he doesn't want out? If he doesn't object and consents to the search warrant becoming unsealed, then at that point, whatever's there, because as Janice has indicated, he already knows, right? He has the documents, so he knows what they were looking for, the basis for it, as well as the return on the search warrant, which means he knows what all the items that they've taken. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens at this point, what decision that he makes and his attorneys make with regards to consenting or fighting the search warrant at this point. I mean, it's just a fascinating situation. And politically, as Dwight McKee was saying, politically, it's going to have all kinds of, or may have all kinds of ramifications with regards to his supporters as well as his elected conservative supporters and how many of the news cycles begin to handle it because of all the information that's now being disclosed, particularly since we're talking about the security of either of our country or the security of information through the nuclear secrets of other countries. So we don't know if the nuclear secrets are nuclear secrets that pertain to our weaponry or the weaponry of other countries. So it's a fascinating position from the legal aspect, but it's even a deeper fascinating position with regards to what now happens politically once all of this is unfolded and released.
Let me ask you this, Dwight. Do you think that you make some brilliant points, Attorney Jones? Do you think that Merrick Garland was responding to the raid on the FBI office in Cincinnati? Do you think that he was thinking about that at all yesterday as he was speaking?
Well, you have to think about that with all of the things that are happening, with all of the threats that are going on around the country, and the FBI more than anybody else are hearing these threats because they got a lot of these places wiretapped. You and I had a conversation yesterday morning, and I said to you yesterday morning that I would be nowhere near an FBI office in memory of Timothy McVeigh, who blew up the FBI in reaction to what had happened in Texas. And, sure enough, 3 hours later, they shoot up the FBI office in Cincinnati because now they themselves become targets. when you deal with a militia that believes that they are the ultimate patriots, that their job is to protect the country from the government, which is what most militias believe, is that from government tyranny, then they see who we see, or some of us see as friends and guardians of the democracy, they see as enemies and threats to the democracy. And so many of these militias are getting ready for war. And when you talk about 87,000 RIS people that they're going to put on and give and arm them, then it looks as if the government is positioning themselves for war. And so Judge Mathis is right. It hasn't been a situation like this in terms of division of the country since about 1848, 1849.
But see,
around
Dwight, that's why I wanted her
to,
pardon me to interrupt. I got about 2 minutes left here, but that's why I wanted Attorney Mathis to open things up, because, you saw in the South, and you still deal with it today. I mean, the Civil War is something America has not gotten over that yet, Janice. Nowhere. We're finding out it wasn't 500,000 people who were killed, or 600,000 or 700, and it might have been 800,000, because this is a lot. I mean, because you understand that the Union does not have to stay together. You know that.
Well, I think in some ways we give Mr. Trump too much credit.
Mm-hmm.
I would date the beginning of the modern Civil War maybe to 2013 when the Voting Rights Act was gutted.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe when Citizens United was passed.
Mm-hmm.
This is about oligarchical wealthy powers who want to preserve power at all costs, and they come in all political stripes. There's a recent article about AIPAC, the Israel PAC, that has been overtaken by conservative Republicans who are donating money to anti-progressive candidates. They fought Donna Edwards in Maryland.
Mm-hmm. This
is something Bernie Marcus, the founder of Home Depot, has become one of the chief funders of Trump-type candidates. I think we give Mr. Trump too much credit. And it didn't take a lot of foresight to know that if you raided Mar-a-Lago, that his base would react violently in the way that they have. So to say that, they shouldn't do that, the FBI shouldn't raid Mar-a-Lago because it may tend to dissuade him from running for president, the reaction was predictable. And so Merrick Garland, they say, is reluctant, and it does not appear that the FBI or the Justice Department is willing to release the affidavit. The warrant, yes. The inventory, yes, but not the affidavit on which the probable cause is based.
We're going to talk about that. When we get on the other side, I think we really need to analyze this, because this is happening in real time, and people are in their feelings, if you will, about this. They are. That Ricky Schiffer, he was the tip of the iceberg, everybody. And with icebergs, there's much more going on underneath than above the water. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a few minutes. Thank you for the history lessons, y'all. But I think we're on Facebook Live. I think you need to emphasize it, because I don't think that we really understand where we are. That's the first thing that you ask when you come into consciousness, when you've been knocked out. Not who am I? Not what am I? You ask, where am I?
Where am I? Where am I?
Where am I? Where am I? I'm speaking from that text next week. I've got a conference. I've got a keynote. I'm like, where am I? Where are we? And I think we need to understand where we are. And in many respects, I don't think that we really understand where we are. I really don't.
Attorney Fancher's on the line.
Thank you. Because, it wasn't 2 minutes before I had to call Dwight back. I'm like, you know, someone has tried to take over the FBI building. One guy in Cincinnati, and they let him walk out of there alive. Janice.
And as a Black person, you don't have to think long to know that we have good reason to be skeptical of the FBI. But it's not just the FBI, it's the Attorney General, it's a federal judge appointed by Trump. If it is a collusion, it is a masterful one. Because all this, if you can bet Joe Biden wishes this was not on his plate right now.
Well, this is the same guy who came out on the floor right after they beat Rodney King half to death for the police officers' Bill of Rights. Remember that?
Yes, I do.
Oh, okay, yes. Oh, no, you know, man.
But you got a president who's coming off his best week in months. Finally, there's some daylight. And you're going to authorize a raid on Mar-a-Lago knowing these rabid fans are going to take to the street with their weapons.
What?
That makes sense to me.
What were they thinking? What were they thinking? What were they thinking? I mean, now Democrats have completely lost the narrative. Completely lost it. Completely lost it.
On purpose. It was a supreme blunder.
Absolutely. Oh, hold on one second. Paul?
Yes.
I've got this Chula Vista giveaway.
Okay.
Okay. So in addition to the live read, so we'll have to, and I'd like for you to hold the winner on so I can give them greetings, but you have to get send me and Melissa Rizzi their name, number, all their information.
Okay.
Okay. I guess it would be addressed and all of that, but Melissa needs all of that at the end of the show.
Okay.
Thank you. Mark Fancher, how you doing?
I'm fine. How are you? Good morning.
Oh, good morning. You're on with Attorney Jones, Dwight McKee, and Attorney Janice Mathis, the Executive Director of the National Council of Negro Women. And this is Mark Fancher, brilliant civil libertarian and civil rights lawyer and author. Just absolutely brilliant. That's why I love shows like these. They can just run themselves. I've got all this brilliance with me. Attorney Jones, Dwight McKee, Attorney Fancher, Attorney Mathis. I ain't got to say nothing. Thank you. But we're going to get right to it.
I've got to drop off now, if that's okay.
No, not a problem. But I love you. And thank you so much for the history lesson.
Love you too, and thank you for the very sweet and kind words about Dad and all.
No, that's true. Every time we'd go to Greenville, every time we'd go to Greenville when your father was alive, we'd have to go by the house. We'd have to go by the house. Bless his heart. And thank you. You have to be grateful. You have to be grateful for the people who helped to get you across the river. And I thank you for that. Thank you so much. Sending you much love. Have a great day.
All right. You too. Goodbye, everybody.
So Mark and Dwight and Daryl, hello.
How you doing, Mark? Hello. Hey, how you doing, Dwight? Good to see you with my ears.
The White House said Biden didn't know about the FBI raid. Effie, I don't believe that at all. Well, somebody might not have known exactly what was going to happen. You have to give a president deniability. I'm not mad at him at all. But the fact is the raid did happen. And Mr. Schiffer is letting you know, he has gone on to be with the Lord, that there are many other Ricky Schiffers out here. The man who raided the FBI office in Cincinnati. There are many, 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 many others. And I don't know what we're going to do. Well, I'm going to duck. How about you guys? I am. Whew. There's some things that are above my pay grade. And these folks this is like, there's a lot going on here. A lot. There's a lot going on. So, but you all can talk amongst yourselves. Well, actually, no, because we're about to come right on up. So there we go. Oh, boy. Too much is going on. Too much.
Coming back in 20 seconds.
Thank you.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am free.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show, the second hour, Friday, August 12th, 2022. It's a joy to be with you here on WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. I want you to call me at 773 or call us, the panel, at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278, as we talk about the Trump raid and all that has happened behind it. What happened in Ohio yesterday was not a one-off, I do not believe, but this gunman Ricky Schiffer went into the FBI building in Cincinnati and was going to do harm at the very least. They ended up killing him after a wild chase, but there's a lot going on. And now we have got to talk about this, everybody, because we are in the midst of historic times. Indeed, President Biden met with historians while he had COVID. It was a Zoom meeting, but it was a meeting nonetheless. And they told him, we have not seen times like these since just before the Civil War. These are very, very interesting times indeed, and we need to not be ahistorical or hysterical. We need to know what our history is so that we can move forward intelligently and peacefully. I'm Santita Jackson. I want to hear from you at 773-763-9278. Let's talk. And at the bottom of the hour, we're going to be bringing economics into this with Dr. Max Wolf. Inflation is driving people into a lot of this chaos. People can't afford to eat, can't afford to pay their rent, their mortgage, and on and on and on. So we got to talk about that, fold that into the conversation. Let's get to some of these headlines. In Chicago, will be cloudy today. 75 degrees will be the high. It was in the 50s last night. Can you believe it? Minneapolis, St. Paul, the high will be 74 degrees. There will be rain. The Dow closed up 27 points yesterday. The NASDAQ closed down 74 points, and the S&P 500 closed down almost 3 points, 2.9 points. The Royals bested the White Sox 5-3 yesterday. The Cubs were triumphant over Cincinnati 4-2, and the Twins will be playing the Angels later on today. In the WNBA, the Aces bested the Sky 89-78, and the Storm will be playing the Lynx, everybody. U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland has moved to unseal the Trump warrant. He said, I personally approved the search. He moved yesterday on the unsealing of portions of the search warrant executed at Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate, as he spoke to the nation yesterday to let us know that he personally, as he said, approved the decision to seek a search warrant in this instance. We're going to be talking about that, everybody. The DOJ believes, the Department of Justice believes that former President Trump held on to sensitive classified documents, and that many of these documents held nuclear secrets. What do you think about that? Call me at 773-763-9278. And as I shared with you just a little bit earlier, Ricky Schiffer, at approximately 9:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, entered the FBI Cincinnati field office, and he had an armed subject. He attempted to breach the screening center, as FBI officials have described it, and it set off an alarm, and It set off a wild chase in the streets by the cars. They were shooting at each other and they ended up killing him. So what do you think about that? What do you think about that? Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. Do you think that that was a one-off, or do you think we'll see more of that? The CDC is no longer recommending restrictive measures such as quarantines and social distancing, everybody, to prevent the spread of COVID-19. In new guidelines released yesterday, the agency said it is no longer necessary to stay at least 6 feet away from others to reduce the risk of exposure. A shift from the guidance that we've been following for nearly 3 years now. Now, nearly 3 years later, nearly the entire U.S. population, according to the CDC, has at least some immunity through vaccination, previous infection, or in some cases, both. So we will see. What are you going to do? Dr. Shanina Knight said, please continue to practice those protocols where you eat well, get the supplements so that you can bolster your immune system, and practice good hand hygiene and mask wearing indoors. Now, COVID is not just a pandemic, it is endemic. It's here, everybody. You know, we've been talking about our financial freedom we wanted, and we want you to have it. Team Hochberg can help you get on the road to eliminating your debt. If you want to purchase a new home, if you want to refinance your existing home, if you want to secure a VA loan, if you want to find out about reverse mortgages, if you want to move from your debit card to a credit card, don't use that debit card. I'm going to have David Hochberg back on here to talk to us about that. If you want to get a credit card, if your credit is not quite there, they will come up with a plan for you so that you can get a credit card. They will come up with a plan for you so that you can save money and buy a home. They will come up with a plan for you to come out of bankruptcy, to get down that credit card debt. Manny, who was 40 years of age, project manager, he made $70,000 a year, and he called to get pre-qualified to purchase a home. His challenge was that he was carrying $20,000 of debt on his credit cards, and he didn't have a down payment. So he called Team Hochberg, and he told them all about it in this free consultation. Then they got back together with him and they partnered up so that he could work his way out of his debt. And guess what? They created this plan to pay off the debt, to save for a down payment so he could purchase a home. That could be you. That could be you. So please call them and tell them everything in this free consultation. Tell them everything, everybody, because financial freedom should be yours. 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID, or visit 56david.com. Guess what? I have got a contest for you. That's right. We gave away this Chula Vista Resort Grand Package. All right, everybody, call me now at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. It's a grand prize summer getaway, and you need to get on it before the summer is gone. It's leaving, everybody. But you can get a one-night stay, Monday through Thursday, 4 water park passes and a villa studio, a $25 dinner voucher, 4 canyon pass, zip line passes, 2 adults, 2 kids. Yes, 2 tickets to play 18 rounds of golf. It's $1,000 package, nearly $1,000. You can be a winner right now. I want you to call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278, and stay on the phone with me for a hot second so I can give you congratulations. Do you want this Chula Vista Resort Grand Prize Package? Call me at 773-763-9278. If you're caller number 2, it can be yours, 773-763-9278. All right, everybody. Let's talk about what's happening with President Trump, with Ricky Schiffer, who went into the FBI office in Cincinnati, and you know, many of President Trump's supporters have said, "I'm going to get my ammo." That's a quote. A lot of people are in their feelings. They're calling for him to run for office, to announce that he is running for office in 2024. And it's only 2022. We haven't had the midterms yet. There's a lot going on here. And then President Biden, for his portion, has met with historians who've said to him, we have not been in times like this. We've not had as great a threat to our country, to our republic, to our democracy, since the Civil War, since just before the Civil War. That's where they see us being right now. So I want to know what your thoughts are. We joining Dwight McKee and attorney Darrell Jones is attorney Mark Fancher, brilliant author and civil rights lawyer and great civil libertarian. Let me start with you, Mark Fancher. Do you think that times are as dire as what these historians are saying? Is Mark Fancher there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, hello.
Oh, yeah. I got you.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah. I think they are, and it is yet a further manifestation of something that has been unfolding for quite some time, and that is the disintegration and the collapse of an empire. Many are trying to make sense of all of these things. Why things are happening the way they are. There is no way to make sense of it because the country is in total chaos and breakdown. And it is, the natural consequence of trying to establish and maintain an empire over the course of an extended period of time. All empires collapse. And what happens is that when a country or, a nation state attempts to dominate the world, specifically by relocating its economic resources and operations, sending its military to different corners of the world in order to maintain and pacify populations that don't want them there in the first place, and resources are going out and nothing is coming in. The local infrastructure is not maintained. The economies of the local areas are not maintained. Things begin to break down. Too much is going out and nothing is happening within. And that has happened with the United States. And you have economic insecurity, you have social insecurity, you have political insecurity. And so it creates so much confusion, so much anger, so much frustration, so much resentment that conditions become ripe for a public, for a citizenry to decide that they're going to elect the village idiot, which is what they did when they elected Donald Trump. And all things flow from that. All of the chaos and the confusion comes from the fact that there has been no one competent, no one insightful or informed or able to maintain anything resembling order within the country. And the genie is out of the bottle. There's nothing that can be done to save this, short of revolution. And the level of consciousness among those who would bring about a revolution is so low. There is so much mass confusion, specifically among white workers. And it's worse than just them not being politically informed or being politically conscious. So many of them have drifted into what is essentially a cult. And Trump has a cult-like following, and they do crazy things. And those who do have some sanity, they don't know what to do about it. And even those who are members of the Republican Party who know better, who have Trump's number, who understand who he is and what he's all about, his shortcomings, deficiencies, and basically his craziness, because they are politicians, which is a loathsome species, as I've said many times, they are looking for some advantage in it. And so what they do is they promote what has happened with respect to the raid, and they try and use it to their political advantage, not so much for the purpose of trying to elect Trump, because they don't want him as president again any more than the rest of us who have some semblance of sanity. But they do recognize him as an icon, as a rallying point for people who are in the Trump cult. And they know that they can mobilize people around what's happening to him. And then they kick the can down the road in terms of what they're going to do practically in terms of getting some type of competent leadership in office eventually.
No, please continue.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, and I don't want to take us off track, but I am concerned, though, and I would never have any sympathetic thought for Donald Trump, no matter what happens, really. But I am concerned about the cavalier, almost seemingly routine use of FBI agents to conduct this raid, because I am concerned that they begin to do this routinely. in cases where I don't want them to do that.
Well, see, hold that thought. Hold that thought,
Okay.
because I've, with some of my liberal friends, white liberal friends in particular, they've disagreed with me, and quite frankly, with some of my black liberal and progressive friends, they've said, I don't care that the FBI basically they're the good guys now. I'm like, have you forgotten the history? I mean, they still spy on progressives today. Black Lives Matter, peace groups, and on and on and on. I still have a lot of unease. I mean, I do, Mark.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's reason for it. I don't know how many know it, but just within the last 2 weeks, Omali Yeshitela, who is the leader of an organization called the African People's Socialist Party, was raided in much the same way. And the reason is very disturbing. I mean, he and his wife, he's 80 years old or thereabouts.
That's right.
He and his wife were in their home, and a battering ram came through the door. And then his wife was almost hit in the face by a drone, which came through the door to scope out the house and to see if all the coast was clear. And then an army of these agents came in, put them in cuffs, took them out, sat them on the curb while they ransacked the house. Now, the reason that they went in after them was because his organization has been in contact with a Russian national who the government is accusing of being an agent who is manipulating domestic organizations and individuals for the purpose of spreading Russian propaganda and for gaining support for Russia in the conflict with Ukraine. And they say the accusation is that they were doing this with the African People's Socialist Party, financing a trip for them to a delegation to Russia and exchanging information. And so now it's a crime to talk to people who the government disagrees with, and that's the way you get treated if you make contact with the wrong people, and that's the way the FBI is used. I think we have good reason to be concerned.
Dwight, what do you think?
Well, I agree with everything Mark said in terms of the empire. The Bible says it just a little different. It says Babylon the Great has fallen. Is that what you're looking at is it's very hard to maintain an empire where a few people maintain all of the wealth and all of the power, all of the influence, and everything trickles down to the masses. And you try to sustain that both domestically and worldwide. So you take those children of the poor and send them overseas and put their lives at risk to protect your interest over there. And at some point, you collapse by your own gravity. You implode. And that's part of what you're seeing in this country now is an implosion. You're seeing his institutions implode. Because you have a situation where very few people are operating only in their interest and the interest of their children. And they really maintain all the levels of power and is not willing to share, not willing to make adjustments, not willing to take resources and distribute them to anybody else. They just amass and amass and amass. And so at some point, you see the results of that, which is, mass chaos. And now you really don't know which way is up because it's hard now to tell the good guys from the bad guys. And again, that's what we're experiencing. It's like you can't tell. The Bible says you can't tell the truth from a lie. Everything is a bizarro world. Everything is everything.
Well, but that's why Daryl. If I may, Daryl Jones. That's why I felt that we need to have a much more nuanced view of all of this, because there's so many moving parts. America hasn't quite been right for a long time, and there has been a rising anger. When when Goldman Sachs threatened to sink the economy unless we gave them some more money. Now, we'd already bailed Wall Street out to the tune of $20 trillion by that time. But remember, they went to Nancy Pelosi and they said, if you don't give us $770 billion today, we are going to sink the economy on Monday. Remember that? And Americans called the Congress and they broke the system. Americans were so angry. So angry. That anger didn't just dissipate. It didn't just disappear. It's here. Student loan debt. It's here. People can't afford their homes. That's here. Folks are opting not to go to college because it's like it's not worth it. It costs too much. This is where we are, Daryl, right now. I've got 2 minutes.
No, and you're absolutely correct, Santita, with the history of it and where we stand now. There are a lot of people that are upset with the government in general, the American government in general, and I think that one of the things that we sort of see taking shape, molding here from dealing with the entire search warrant and everything evolving around that with the former President Trump, coming out of the Department of Justice and Merrick Garland is an attempt to try to reestablish some type of trust in the court system as well as in the executive branch of government. Because, we know, as you've indicated, that as we speak, we've seen the acts of the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, the 3%ers, and now, many of the situations that's what we're going to be seeing, perhaps even more so with the FBI office in Ohio and what went on with the guy with the AR-15 and the nail gun trying to kill officers there. So we see all of that that's occurring, but in the response to that has been trying to reestablish some type of trust in the court system. That's why that's probably one of the reasons why that Merrick Garland certainly is asking the courts to make the decision on whether or not to open things back up with regards to the search warrant. What we're seeing is a step to try to reestablish the trust of the people in the Department of Justice. And so that's why Merrick Garland is trying to put all of this out there to try to preserve the integrity, or at least fan the integrity of the Department of Justice and the judicial process. I believe that's a large part of what we're beginning to see and what we're witnessing now. But I'm in complete agreement with you that the past, the record, certainly is one of distrust of these institutions, and for valid reasons, because they've taken those steps that are against the masses of people and giving away the money, as you indicated, in some situations. But now we're at a position, we're at a crossroads where either we're going to be able to reestablish the trust and the foundation of those institutions, or we're going to go down a very different road. And I believe that's the road that Mark Fancher and to some degree that Dwight McKay have spoken of. So I think that's where we are right now as a nation. And the question will be, which road do we take? Which direction do we go? And can we really work to save our democracy? Because it really is right now our democracy that's in trouble.
Well, that they need to establish trust, because there was rot in the FBI from the beginning. Thank you, J. Edgar Hoover. Let me bring up Rose. Rose won the Chula Vista package. Rose, I'm sorry, I've only got about 30 seconds for you, my dear sister. Congratulations to you.
Hi, thank you so much. Very excited.
Are you going to get on the zip line, Rose?
You know what? I think I might.
Would you call me? Let me know if you do it. Would you please call?
Sure, I will. Thank you so much for the package. I love it.
Oh, look.
And I love listening to the show. Thank you.
Oh, I just love you. And she's going to be on the zip line. Okay. All right, you look. Girl, you got to let me know. Call in and let us know, okay?
Okay, thanks, Santita.
Rose is a big winner, everybody. She won the package. Next week, it could be you. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show. Oh, Rose. Bless her heart. She's going to get on that zip line. Oh, my gosh. You guys, what that now you know what? You know who I could, the three out of the three of you, I could see you on that zip line. Daryl, have you ever done that?
I haven't done it, but I'd be on it in a heartbeat.
I know you would be. And you know where I'd be?
It just sounds exciting, exhilarating.
Bless your heart. I'd be downstairs waiting for you having lunch. There you go. Honey, look, tell me about
Well,
it.
I've done it.
Mark?
Oh, yeah. No, I took my son on a field trip years ago, and they had one, and I got on it. I tried to pretend to be Superman. That didn't work out too well.
You mean you didn't go, wow, wow. Honey, I would have been like, you know what? No way. Oh, no. Every contest winner, I have asked them if they're going to do the zip line. I can't even get to golf and everything else. I'm like, you going to do that zip line? Are you sure?
Dr. Wolf is on the line.
Oh, my gosh. Let me bring up Dr. Wolf. Dr. Max Wolf, how are you?
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm glad that you could join us today. You know, we've got Attorney Darrell Jones, Dwight McKee, all of your fans, and Attorney Mark Fancher. Of course, we've been talking about President Trump, but you know, the inflation. I think all
this is mutual. Not with the president, former president, but with your esteemed guest.
Thank you. I was about to get a little worried about you.
I feel like Derek McKee never takes home America's nuclear secrets, and it should probably be on his LinkedIn profile.
Is this what we are living through? Is this crazy or what? Joyce, this is on your bucket list? Oh, girl. Okay. Well, okay. No, Effie, I'm not going to get on the zip line. No, I'm not. No, I told you where I'm going to be. I'm going to be down there having lunch. And I'll meet everyone who's finished with the zip line. That's what I'm going to do. Whew. But we have been talking about President Trump because, you know, on top of everything else, you had that that incursion at the FBI office in Cincinnati, and we don't think that that's going to be the end of it. Dr. Wolf, we think this is just the tip of the iceberg. What do you think?
I mean, sadly, it seems preordained. It's also not the first, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it might be worth mentioning that this is number X, where X is large, on its way to X plus some other number, which is large. And look, you know, there are a lot of issues here, but at the most basic, superficial level, if you encourage people to do something and then facilitate their evading responsibility for it, you can expect to see a whole lot of it going forward, right? And so, you know, I think that's a factor. I also think entitlement dies hard.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. Always. But you know what? I'm gonna have these gentlemen comment on where the economy, well, you know, where the lack of money might figure into all of this, and we're going to pivot right into you. But we sure have been talking about Trump. Boy, oh boy. I wonder what that warrant is going to show us today. Wonder.
Coming back in 30.
Will continue to embarrass the people who wanted to believe this was just some sort of poorly thought out incursion to get a free day pass to Mar-a-Lago.
Oh, well, I tell you what, there's a lot that's been said. There's a lot that's been said.
I mean, to me, the economics begins with a guy who wants those people outside tangling with the FBI, but won't let them come inside and sit down because they don't have $150,000 for the membership. That tells you a lot about that economic
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am breathing.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. Attorney Darrell Jones, Transformative Justice Coalition. Attorney Mark Fancher, brilliant author and, of course, great civil libertarian, great attorney. And Dwight McKee, brilliant social scientist. Of course, we didn't get him yesterday, but we got him today. Dr. Max Wolf, brilliant economist. We're so glad that he's back with us today. I wanted these gentlemen to kind of link what's happening to us in terms of inflation, the economy. Really, folks have no money. The great Lamont Dozier, the songwriter who passed away this week, one of the architects of the sound of America, the Motown sound. had a song that was popular, Dwight, back in the day called Fish Ain't Biting. Remember that? And I ain't catching nothing. That's what he wrote. You remember that?
Yeah, for that.
And and people out here, as we look at it, come on, you didn't think I knew. You didn't think I knew. Oh, you're sleeping on me, Dwight. I've been in the music a long time. There you go. But where do you think the economy intersects? Is there do you think there's any relationship to the economy and the unrest that we're seeing right now?
Oh, absolutely. I think that that for a lot of people, it's at a crisis level. I mean, so many of them economically didn't survive the pandemic. Barely holding on with inflation is really taking them out of any kind of economic gain that they can make in their lives. Tuition for a lot of these kids is out of control. Interest rates are rising. I mean, Brother Wolf can tell you that whole story, but it's created anxiety because people, don't know what the next meal is coming from. You have Darius on every couple of days, and he talks about the people that he's feeding in his neighborhood driving up in luxury cars.
Wait a minute, and their work trucks, and their FedEx and UPS trucks. Oh my gosh!
Many people are in crisis mode, and it's created a frustration and a reaction that many other people who are bathed in wealth don't understand. It's almost a let them eat cake syndrome. That it's the gap is so wide that those that are doing well really has become insensitive to those who are not doing well. So it created an anxiety and a backlash that that we feeling more and more every day.
Well, you know,
these mass shootings, some of them rose out of that kind of frustration.
And and I want to hear from you, Attorney Fancher, and you, Attorney Jones, as we pivot to Dr. Wolf, because this will put some meat on the bones for him. Not that he does not know, Attorney Jones, the inflation, folks. Empty shelves in the grocery store. They can't afford it. They can't even afford to go there anyway.
Yeah, Santita, it's really a horrible situation that many Americans find themselves in. Because you got to remember, not is it just the economics of dealing with it right in your face that you can't afford to feed your family, you can't afford to put the gas to take your kids to soccer practice, basketball practice, or wherever it is that you're going. But that's all wrapped around all the other issues that we see happening, dealing with the diseases, the COVID, the money, the monkeypox. You're also dealing with as well the dish. 55% of Americans don't trust the Supreme Court. You then put on top of that everything with regards to the intelligence community being under attack. Everything that enshrines the American mindset is all very negative in terms of what's occurring around us. And then when you add to that layer, the economics of it. What can you afford to do? Can you go to, you can't really go to a movie, I guess, because if you're all the other concerns that are there. But the economics of being able to provide for yourself and for your family, that's like the underpinning to it all. So to have that frustrated, there's nothing but frustration that then exists. And so, that's when, I believe that economics just sort of, winds its way through and is a foundational piece of everything else that we're dealing with through all of these issues in terms of the average person and what they're able to do with the money that they now don't have. So, that just all adds, I think, to that, to the mindset of what's going on with the everyday American.
And lastly, you, Attorney Fancher, the money. Well,
yes, that is at the root of the problem. People are facing great economic instability, and as they do, and as they struggle to survive, they also begin to look for answers. And it becomes a condition that are conditions which are just perfect for demagogues like Trump to come in and to essentially break this down into one discrete issue or solution or answer to all of their problems, and that is to help them to understand that this is all about race. That what they're experiencing is economic insecurity, but this is all about race. And the fact that white people who are supposed to be the masters of this country, who are always supposed to enjoy economic security, who are also always supposed to be dominant, they are losing their grip on the country. And notwithstanding the rhetoric that never mentions this explicitly, the code goes out to white people throughout the country that you're losing. You're falling behind in terms of demographic projections. You're falling behind in terms of political representation. You're falling behind in terms of employment and entrepreneurial opportunities. You're falling behind in every way. And it's because people who don't deserve it, people who are people of color, are coming and taking everything that rightfully belongs to you. And not only that, there are more of them coming across the border who are going to take even more of your stuff and more of your opportunities and more of your privilege. And now is the time to fight back. You're at a point where you're desperate, that there is no time anymore for polite political discourse or participation in the political process, because it's all corrupt. These evil people of color have taken control of the political establishment. They've taken control of everything that we've counted on to maintain control of them. And the only thing left for us to turn to is our guns, and Donald Trump is our leader.
And that cues it up for you, Dr. Max Wolf, as we look at the recession and inflation.
I'm going to surprise you by telling you that, as a professional economist, I think trans-border jumpers from Mexico teaching critical race theory is the biggest issue in our economy, and it is responsible for gas prices. Actually, I don't, but I do think that anxiety was the most kind of prescient of the comments. I think it's just the age of insecurity for a growing number of people who may or may not have thought that they were going to do well because they were white or heterosexual or middle class. But I think they thought they would do okay. I think a lot of people didn't think they would do well. And I think if you look at a lot of the fans of these more peripheral theories, they were not doing that well before. But they weren't humiliated. They weren't broken, right? And I think when you go, I live in a big city, I guess, depending on how you define it, but New York City usually fits that description, right? And I live in Brooklyn, so I may not live in the most representative area in the U.S. I know that you've mentioned this to me on a number of occasions in Santita. And my work travels mostly involved going to places like San Francisco and Oakland and Los Angeles and Chicago, Boston, which also may suffer some not perfect demographic fit to sort of mid-sized cities or what have you. But if you find yourself not in Brooklyn, particularly for me, there's legitimate fear and desperation in the eyes of people at the grocery counter. And again, I don't think it's inflation. I think it's that they have no money, and all the things they used to get themselves, which they couldn't afford anymore for the last 20 years, to reassure themselves that they were okay and they could provide for their kids, their husband, their wife, their parents, whoever. Also, because as times get hard, people end up taking care of and being responsible for a lot of people if they do okay, right? So people end up with a lot of dependents because a lot of folks are having a hard time out there, and they're laudably, trying to do the right thing, trying to help other people. They see the need, they try to step up, and then they experience this crushing pressure every day because it increasingly seems like even if you do everything right, you're going to get some disease you never heard of before. You're going to die from that disease. Your boss is going to be too cheap to get you a coffee filter and a rubber band to put over your face so that your odds go up. You're going to get a vaccine that you don't 100% trust or doesn't do as much to help you as you thought. you're going to apply for some kind of benefits and they're going to come late, if at all. And then even if you've done everything right, even if you're a veteran trying to get care for a disease you unambiguously got in the service, right? Like this idea that it could be your pre-existing times you spent handling depleted uranium in your backyard in St. Louis, it's pretty scary for a lot of people, right? All the time. And that anxiety, that age of permanent crisis filters into all those pre-existing cracks and fissures in the system. And then I think the difference between having some money and not having some money became life and death during the ongoing COVID crisis, again, still going, and also the gap became a gape. So, and people became invisible to each other, right? So between the parsing algorithms in social media, where everyone is sure that whatever they think, no matter how fringy, it's mainstream, and the fact that people aren't out circulating with each other, and certainly I'm not telling everyone to go host a super spreader event, but being forced to interact with other people by your everyday life and interact with other ideas is moderated. And that, maybe it started in the age of specialty cable, but it reached its apex in the age of, Twitter and Facebook and TikTok. You're really only seeing your own curated biases projected back at you, and you have few and sort of watered down social interactions for a lot of people. And so they're not going to church. And if they are, they kind of come at the last minute and sit as far away from everyone as they can and go home. They're not going to the event. They're not going to the restaurants and the bars and talking to each other, right? And so people are super alienated and super anxious. And then their coping mechanisms are often drinking, drugs, extreme politics, alcohol, right? Things that, may or may not soothe the worst impulses within all of our hearts. And so, I do think we've sort of turned a pot that was boiling over all the way up and then stacked a bunch of stuff on top of it. And not so sure that ends well, not in the versions of that film that history lets us preview. So I do think it's an age of anxiety, and I think a lot of privilege dies hard. But I think if we get away from our traditional fissures, a larger and larger segment of the population is desperate and scared, witless, often quite literally witless. And it isn't always just the same people. It isn't always for the same reason. And a lot of people who are, quote unquote, doing okay know how close they are to the edge, even if their neighbor doesn't, and even if their wife doesn't, right? And so I think a lot of people are closer to the edge and are very aware of it. And even if they're doing okay, even if they're not as close to the edge, it is the age of the sudden collapse of performance or the sudden illness, right? And it seems like there's some new cataclysm that you hadn't much thought of and didn't think you needed to think of that dominates the headlines all the time. That sort of ratchets up that. So you have less to soothe and more to antagonize. And it's a kind of constant. And our politics have taken that turn too, right? I think a lot of politics, both right and left, red or blue, if you prefer, is really basically the story of the day is, I can't believe they fill in the blank, right? And that becomes good because it's clickbait, right? It makes sense. But it pushes you to identify as in a mortal struggle. Sometimes you might be, right? But we've also lost even those core principles that used to be somewhat kind of connective tissue, right? Like if the vast majority of the public felt a certain way, we would at least have to have a story of why we're not doing it. I think part of the issue with the Supreme Court is if people feel like their job is to seize the institutions and make it work for their narrow interests, and they do, they end up doing something which is highly corrosive, which I think we're in the middle of a really aggressive version here, which really reached its apex with Trump, which is we're just tearing down the institutions to get what we want now, right? Because if you push through highly partisan and unpopular things without even making a big investment in trying to change people's minds, which is what you're supposed to do in a democracy, you end up savaging the legitimacy of those institutions, right? And whether that's the Supreme Court today or some other institution tomorrow, it's still pretty terrible. And it makes it very hard to have a recovery or have anything uniting. Right? And you can have a Republican Party that mostly runs on being the party of the military and tries to count on that with whatever issues that has, given their racial politics and some other issues of taking care of of veterans, but you have people knowing they're on camera, mugging for the camera, high-fiving each other after shooting down emergency veteran benefits.
Mm.
And that's a level of being cut off from even your own story about yourself that is, I think, a little bit ahistorical.
So where are we? Are we in a recession? Is inflation real? I mean, because I don't feel, when I'm looking at corporate media, I don't feel the desperation that I'm feeling and seeing out here with people. People are...
I think you might in some ways, right? You look at those crime numbers. To me, whenever we talk about crime shooting up, you're talking about desperation.
Mm.
Because if you look at crime, not in movies and television, but if you look at real crime is usually a desperate act that often makes a bad situation worse, both for the crime victim and the perpetrator, because most people who are victims of crime are poor. Right? So I understand that's not a great movie of a junkie who breaks into his grandmother's house and takes her waffle iron, but that's a lot of actual crime, right? So a lot of crime is very low glamour, poor on poor. And so those crime numbers speak to a level of desperation. I think economically, the headline numbers are mixed, but we have had the worst performance for productivity we've seen in a lifetime, which is, pretty important and a major issue. And we've had no economic growth now for the better part of 6 months. And the inflation thing's a trap. I mean, yes, there's inflation. The bigger problem is that people's wages haven't gone up. And the way we solve inflation is by having recession. And so all these people who kind of went for it hook, line, and sinker, the biggest thing in their life was the price of gas and food. I know that's a big deal. I know it hurt. They didn't notice that their wages aren't sufficient. Those people are going to get the recession that they're being set up to ask for, right? Because the way we fight inflation is largely economic as economists is with recession.
Well, is there a way out of this?
I mean, you can tighten the policy in what's called a pro-poor manner, right? So you can try to target policies so that they hit wealthier groups harder, right? So for instance, if you try to subsidize rent but make it harder to buy a home, relatively poorer people do better than relatively richer people. Not 100%, right? On average, people who rent the place where they live in the United States, on average, with lots of exceptions, are less affluent than the people who own where they live, right? Mm-hmm. So one of the big divides is, do you own where you live or do you rent where you live? So if you get in to break an inflation, but you make it hurt more for the home owner, home buyer, and hurt less for the renter, it's what we sometimes will call pro-poor policy. So you can intervene in the policies and do that. I'm sure you're on the edge of your seat. I'm not sure that your comrades in the House and Senate on either side of the aisle, but maybe particularly your friends in the red column are going to be super excited about pro-poor intervention policy, but it's possible that you could get that. So yes, it is possible. Probable might be another story, but it is possible to intervene in inflation. The other thing about inflation that no one wants to tell you, so I'm going to keep telling you and be annoying, is this inflation was a long time coming. We spent 40 years building up globalization and these very intricate, fragile international supply chains. And then we spent 4 years having a temper tantrum, smashing that stuff and saying everyone's trying to cheat us and beginning to disassemble this global supply chain. There might be some benefit to that longer term, but short term, that's a supply disruption. And if you add to that supply disruption COVID, which is an epic supply disruption, that's almost nothing to do with the short-term response policies we're doing, which means those will only be so helpful. Although we have seen real reduction in headline inflation, maybe temporary, but we have. We've seen a more distinctive fall in the price of gas lately too, which usually helps people a bit at the pump.
Well, what's your closing thought? I mean, just let me get about 30 seconds from Daryl and Dwight and Mark, because this is, it's the money, Daryl. 30 seconds. Money is driving people, and the lack thereof. It's driving folks crazy. You know what they say, when the money gets funny, so does the honey. I mean, on every level. So,
and that's completely right. Yeah, no, I'm completely with you on that, Santita. That it's the lack of money that drives the insecurity. If you don't have financial security, that's one of the pillars that make up the essence of the person. Meaning that you're feeling okay. If things may go wrong, but I have some money in my pocket, and I'm able to do some things for myself. So I think that what Dr. Wolf really laid out with regards to the personal income pay that has not increased, but the price of everything else that you would want to do has increased, means that you can afford fewer things, and that has effect psychologically across the board on all aspects of your life. So I'm in complete agreement with that, Santita.
And you see it and you feel it. Mark Fancher.
Well, I'm not a pessimist, but I just try and be a realist. And the capitalist system is a stupid, evil system that's going to eventually collapse anyway. So I think we should kill it off as quickly as we can. And the only hope that we have of doing that is, one, pray. God will help us do it because he hates it as much as I do. And two, just continue to organize and educate as many people as we can and establish global relationships with progressive and revolutionary forces around the world. I think the world is going to have to save this population in North America. It's not going to save itself.
Dwight McKee, 30 seconds.
Well, the role of the Federal Reserve is to protect the value of money. And you protect the value of money by inflating the economy and deflating the economy. And so when money is valued more than people, you have a real impact on society, and that's what we're facing. We're facing a society right now where people feel undervalued and money and material things are overvalued. And so coming out of that is the anxiety and the crime and the frustration that I think people are sensing every day. They're looking for purpose and value, and they see themselves being dismissed and being forfeited by people who they trusted to take care of them.
Sure.
The government and people who they have invested in a country that many of them gave their lives to protect. They feel forsaken by. And so you feel that frustration within the framework of society.
The last word belongs to you. 1 minute, Dr. Max Wolf.
I think we've decided to disassemble what was already a pretty biased and pretty weak social safety net, just as our glory days faded and we needed it, right? So we're like a person facing retirement who's decided to flush their savings. The good news is it's still a wealthy enough country to build it back, right? But I do think that we're at a weird time. We got this sort of rush of arrogant dominance right before we kind of aged out of our glory days. And that's created this funky situation here where we're going to need to reprioritize putting a floor in at the cost of the ceiling. And we have spent 40 years ripping out the ceiling and taking out the floor in the process, right? And that's how we are able to mint so many billionaires, and some good comes of some of the innovations that make people billionaires for sure. But we really focused on this winner-take-all mentality, this winner-take-all social organization, and we've done that at a time where less and less of us are bigger and bigger winners. And that's a little bit what I mean by the gaps have become gates. And I think the other issue is that there's a desocialization that's come along with COVID and with our politics much before COVID. So between the parsing algorithms and life at home and social media replacing social interaction and quarantine and work from home and all this, and we're sort of learning that everyone else is a disease threat, it's become harder for us to come together at a moment when we had to. I think that's the economic challenge.
Well, we've got to come together, everybody, but we've got to heal the system and heal each other. I love everybody. See you at Keep Hope Alive on 7 o'clock on Sunday morning. God bless. Dr. Wolf, I want you to finish saying what you were saying, because I think that Whew, it's so important.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like families go through this too, right? So some more successfully than others, but often in a crisis, it's really hard to keep everyone together because all those frictions and resentments and issues of the past, they can kind of come out in the heat of the moment. But if that family is going to get through a big crisis that affects it, it's going to find some way to put that crisis ahead of whatever its pre-existing divisions were. And if it's going to implode and fall apart, it's going to put those divisions first. Right? And it's a test of a family, it's a test of a business, it's a test of a team, and it's a test of a nation. Right? And I'm very hopeful we could do better with our recent test scores are not encouraging. You know, and look, I think we have these little tests. So yes, I think the economic news, the business news is mostly focused on how to sell ads, right? And so stories that you can sell ads against are always more interesting than stories you can't, right? And inequality and who's left behind is kind of tricky content to sell digital ads around, right? So I think stories about more positive profitability and stuff, you know, just elicits better ad rates. So I think there's partly a story there, but I think we get the desperation stories. I don't think countries where people are generally doing okay have multiple spree shootings a week, or people crying outside of the former president's golf resort that they're not into because they're not allowed into because they can't afford the membership, offering to face off against federal police without knowing the charges or what's going on. All they know for sure is that they're going to face off against armed federal police acting on behalf of the federal government in exchange for, oh yeah, that's right, nothing. Great. Right? And these are probably, in some cases, smart, reasonable people. But you also have people making campaign ads in which they're going to hunt down and murder their colleagues who disagree with them. These are not signs of the coming together, I think. Again, I don't think these are controversial ones, but I think you need it, right? And I think the truth is that's also what the news shows us. There are really always great stories of resilience and coming together. And however sad it is that there are people in luxury cars stopping to get fed, someone is also feeding them. Someone is stepping up, right? And there are people who, at risk to themselves, are going to try to make sure to care for people with monkeypox or COVID or people with no place to go or nothing to eat, right? And as much as a lot of people don't like the Supreme Court, you've also seen the willingness and all kinds of creative outpouring of solidarity and of people trying to help people who are afflicted by various decisions of the Supreme Court, by the way, which are definitely about Roe versus Wade, but they're also about the Voting Rights Act. The Supreme Court has not been gentle to past efforts to increase voting rights and voting access either, right? It's not just reproductive rights, but it's been poor on, right? And you're seeing that around gun control efforts, which the Supreme Court has also been pretty aggressively hostile to. So, I mean, you're starting to see the groups come together that could make this better, but it's going to be, I think we're in one of those moments, which in a violent country are often violent, unfortunately, in which there is a real tussle about the direction of America's future. I think if you want to be optimistic, the thing that's most optimistic to me is the younger Americans are less messed up on a lot of the big questions than older Americans. And that has some hope intrinsic to it, I think.
I think so. I think so. They're more progressive. They're more willing to, they're more willing to explore other economic systems. And, I think they're more willing to mix it up because we're all, we all have mixed systems. Some aspects are capitalist, some are socialist and all of that. But I think that they are. But in the meantime, we're all still here. And I think, as you said many, many years ago, we have to grow up in our politics. We just have to grow up in our politics. We have to do things differently. Because what we're doing right now, we're working through some things, but what we've got, it's not working. It's not working. And it is about the money. I promise you, if people felt great felt that they could afford to live their lives in comfort, you wouldn't have all of this unrest, all of this chaos. You wouldn't.
They don't have to feel great, just not terrified.
Well, just not terrified. In the past 3 years, people have felt terrified, and that's where we are. Terror.
when the grind gets long, the damage gets deep too. People can go through short periods of real stress. Not good for them, but they can. The resilience is higher, but people get worn down too. Mm-hmm. When the crisis is not a week or a month, but it starts getting measured in years, it really strains resiliency of even the most resilient communities and people, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's the sort of the duration of a crisis is part of its severity.
Mm. Dwight and Mark or Daryl, is anyone else still there?
I'm still here, but I'm just listening to the dog.
Oh, absolutely. But, well, give us some feedback, Dwight. What do you think?
I totally agree with him. I think that, with both of y'all actually, that people's frustration, a lot of it goes from the economic insecurity and their fear of the future. And so, it almost become you better grab all you can while you can, because almost a hoarding mentality, because you don't know what's going to be available 2 months from now or 3 months from now. And so there's a very quiet desperation, which becomes a little less quiet every day, that permeates the society. And when you add that with people that kind of frustration, with people who are with guns and who become fundamentally paranoid because they think either the government is trying to take something from them, or their neighbors are trying to take something from them, or foreigners are trying to come in and take something from them, then you have this recipe for violence and recipe for danger that is, has not happened in the country for 100 years. It's just a very interesting time to see society collapse on itself. When you have a ball player who can turn down a $500 million contract, to play baseball, and people see that and compare that with the pittance that they can't pay the rent or can't buy medicine for their sick mothers and sick fathers, it's going to create frustration and anxiety, because the economy and the values in society has become so lopsided.
Well, and they cannot even afford to go to the game. That's what's so awful. I mean,
and he's turning down $500 million.
You get to the games now, Max, these stadia for baseball and basketball and football. I mean, they're full of corporate boxes. Tiers 2, 3, 4.
Or bleacher seats that aren't cheap. And then if you go and get one beer and one hot dog, it's $30.
You can't afford to go to that.
Unless you're going to just try to splash some water in your mouth in the toilet. You have a whole bunch more money too. They're going to get you both ways. And if you bring a kid, if you come with a younger person, they're going to want all kinds of jerseys and stuff. And, party's going to want to get them something, and that's going to put you back, another $20, $30, $40, right? But partly that's about the people who have money feeling like it's okay to set everything up to grab more money, right? And even though it may or may not end up being one of the poster children of this era, I think the Musk Twitter deal is kind of amazing, right? You have a wealthy guy who's wealthy on a bunch of companies, which are interesting ideas, most of which lose vast sums of money, but he promises even more money, so it kind of works, who seems a little bit, at very least, extravagant and iconoclastic at best, who may or may not have boasted because of his newfound paper wealth that he could buy a major global media company, Twitter, and then changed his mind because he thought it's too high of a price, having not thought about it, has sold $30 billion worth of shares in the company in order to fund $9 billion of a purchase, which he's refusing to make. And so he just sort of, obviously, he thinks he has his fans, and he can do whatever he wants to turn it into money. Sounds a little bit like the former president, right? And it just sounds like when people on the top don't feel any sense of restriction or what they can do, things can go bad pretty fast, right? Because then there's no responsibility privilege. It's just privilege. And when there's no even patina of justice or righteousness or responsibility attached to success, then you do sort of get this hedonistic idea that success means entitlement and that lives, whims, jobs, bodies of people who are less wealthy are rightfully playthings of the more wealthy. And that's going to create, on top of that anxiety, a level of violence that is unhinging to a society, right? And sort of feeds on itself, right? I assume that after every one of these spree shootings in a public place, some number more people go out and get guns on the assumption that it's only other people's guns that are dangerous. Right? After
Absolutely.
each financial swindle that goes unpunished, people go out and say, screw this, I want my money, and they go pull one, right? So these things have a tendency, unfortunately, to feed each other in a way that, is not socially beneficial.
I think you're right. You're absolutely right. But this
We could have
is
stopped all this if we had done my idea of send Santita to space, but, the audience balked on the price tag.
you better watch him, Dwight. He's been trying to send me to space. I won't even do zip line. He's been trying to send me out to space since last summer. He's wanted to put me on one of these rockets. I said no.
Think of immediate impressions. Think of the Santita and Friends. One broadcast live from space.
Please. Look, Jeff Bezos already told me what the deal was. He said, pretty soon coming to Earth will be like going to visiting Yellowstone National Park. I said, really? So are y'all planning for us not to be around? Crazy.
At least Yellowstone isn't one of the parks that burnt down this month.
Oh, now that's true. Well, clearly,
As far as I know.
Well, he's ahead of the curve because he said Yellowstone will make it. I don't know about everything else. Unbelievable. This is unbelievable.
Maybe less wildfires there.
Yeah. But it's like we're watching everything collapse.
And that's the other thing we don't talk about, which is part of what an economy should probably need, it should be measured by going forward, is its sustainability. Because if you make a few good years, but you cause mass extinction and cities to flood and millions of climate refugees, I'm not sure that's so successful either. And we have not done a good job in the U.S. at dealing with climate issues. And we know what those issues are outside of maybe the corrupting influence of some special interests. We kind of know what's going on. We should be a leader. It would give us some chance to produce decent new jobs as we pivot toward a way of powering our economy that doesn't say kill all the living things on the planet, which seems like a pretty decent basic presumption. Like, hey, let's not kill everything for this plan. I always find it interesting that people who wear the mantra of the culture of life don't seem to care much about the life of all living things on Earth. Mm-hmm. But I am old-fashioned, and I feel like living carbon-based organisms are interesting, people included. And so it might be a good thing to mention here too that part of what a even functionally humane system does is make sure not to kill off the ecosystem. And I'll remind people who tend to think of this as a sort of upper class concern that, like all things in the market economy, the chain rolls downhill. So climate damage, heat sinks in cities, and climate disasters have increasingly fallen disproportionately on the poorest people, right? Whether it's because they live in the lowest part of town that floods first, or because they're in the least easy to cool, least likely to have proper cooling and heating, or because they're the most put out by a storm, whatever it is, it tends to be that folks who are on the wrong side of all kinds of discrimination and social injustice bear more than their fair share of the climate burden as well.
Dwight, you have a response? Is Dwight still there? Well, you know what? I mean, one of the things that I love about sharing with you is that...
And he's working at his financial scam. He was inspired by our conversation. He's killing several firearms.
He probably had a Zoom call.
Financial scam now.
Oh no, I think he probably had a Zoom call. But I just thank you for being so thoughtful and for teaching me and helping me to think. Really, I'm so grateful.
I always learn from the show and from your dad.
No, I mean, I'm
a
very
little bit
serious.
disappointed no one went for my. Me too. I was a little disappointed no one went for my bad hombre, trans, racial justice worker period of 18-hour weakness. But I figured I'd float it. And hope for the best. I don't know if you guys noticed this, but there was almost no inflation before we started talking about critical race theory. Coincidence?
Oh, man.
I know. It's like for my kid, she came home. She said, "Oh my God, Dad, we're going to have to raise all the prices." And I said, "You don't control the prices." She said, "Shut up. I just learned about slavery. I hate you. I hate me. And I want to pay $11 for gas." And I was able, I think, to put things right by tearing a photo of Martin Luther King off the blackboard in her school. That was a nice story.
Oh.
From Florida?
Yes. Yes.
Classic. It's age appropriate.
Oh my gosh. I mean,
that story is heartwarming.
It's crazy.
I'm not going to say anything, but I've shared with you a theory that there is something special in Florida.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure there's lots of great people in Florida, but there's a certain kind of thing that seems to occur there more. Maybe it's not fair, maybe it's a media conceit, but man.
Florida is a lot. I mean, I just don't have, I have nothing. I have nothing to say, but I told you, I feel it when I go down there. Because Castro had a nice little dump in Florida and I can feel it. I'm like, because, my mother spent a lot of time in Cuba as a child and my grandmother worked there as a migrant worker.
In Florida?
Oh, yeah. Because, Florida, Florida became a different place once Disney World got there. Before then, it was unincorporated. It's where Black people ran to join indigenous peoples while they were trying to escape slavery and heinous attacks by whites. And my grandmother,
Florida was kind of a swamp, right?
No, it was a swamp, but that's who lived in the swamp. Zora Neale Hurston writes about it brilliantly. The brilliant author and anthropologist. And in fact, Zora Neale Hurston taught at my grandmother's grammar school. And and so my mother, spent time in Cuba as a little girl. And because my grandmother was,
that's pre-revolution.
Well, yeah, because she was a day. My grandmother was a day and a seasonal
before
worker.
1960.
No, this was in the 40s and the 50s.
Yeah, so before the revolution.
Before the revolution, before they got Batista out. And my grandmother said, "Say what you will about Castro." She said, before he came to power, we were little more than slaves there. See, because my grandmother, she was the polar opposite of my father's mother. My father's family, my mother and father's family, just completely different. My father's family, they're very, very mixed people. My mother's family are very, very Black people. They have Native American, but my point is my mother's mother's options socially were not what my father's mother's options would have been socially. Because my grandmother was very dark. She looked West African. When my African friends met her when she was still living, well, they said, "Oh, my sister. Oh, look, your grandmother. She's beautiful. She's from Nigeria." And it's when she said that they were little more than slaves. I said, "Whew." And because she never talked, you and I've talked about our grandmothers. She never talked about.
The sugar business in the Caribbean is rough business too.
Oh yeah. But we talked about that.
Agricultural laborers there.
Yeah. And just how our grandmothers absorbed trauma. Your grandmother coming out of the Holocaust and just, the things that people do to each other is just, it's awful. But look, I'm going to have to.
It takes a long time for that to.
It takes generations, and you and I have been talking about that. It takes generations to work that stuff out. It takes generations. Yeah. It does. It really does. But you have to be conscious about working it out.
COVID is going to leave its mark on this whole generation, and then probably too.
Absolutely. But look, I'm going to push. But let's talk later on today if you have any time.
I do. I'll look forward to it, and thanks for having me on your show as always. Sorry about the Thursday to Friday move there.
It does not matter. You know you have a space here. I'm not even thinking about that. You just let me know.
All right. Well, at least we got the inflation numbers. It's sort of interesting. But yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We shall see. Are you contributing to the Mar-a-Lago Defense Fund? I don't see the problem is a lot of guys who don't know how to read and write take home the nuclear launch code to their knowledge.
Oh.
It's fine.
Oh, my
gosh.
gosh.
And then they refuse to give it back repeatedly when someone says, like, hey, did you forget to bring the codes home? He's like, thank you. I know now.
Oh, what am I going to do?
Like, guy's razor sharp, man.
Oh, my gosh. It's
I
a
think
lot.
we need to reelect him so he can get the codes again. I can't live with the injustice that he doesn't have the codes there. It does remind me of what Max Boot, probably one of the best named spies ever.
Oh my gosh!
Said at the beginning of the Trump administration. He's a senior intelligence person, but very smart.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But,
I know who Max Boot is.
Yeah. But he was a guest lecturer here. But yeah, so I had a couple of conversations. Very impressively smart guy. But anyway, he had a great one-liner. Like a year or two into the Trump administration, he said any foreign intelligence leader who doesn't have staff at Mar-a-Lago should be stood up against the wall and shot for rank and competence.
Oh my
gosh!
gosh!
Like all the employees there were spies because he would have like a high-level defense meetings like over the iced tea. Remember when he tried to say that he solved the trade dispute with China because the premier of China liked the chocolate cake at Mar-a-Lago? and then Mar-a-Lago, even when he was the president, was shut down twice for the dirtiness of the kitchen. No, it was shut down while he was president.
Is that crazy? Dirty. I mean, is it crazy?
Not really, because if everyone who works in the kitchen is a fucking spy, their sanitary food handling value isn't that good. So they don't train you how to put away the cucumbers when you're in the secret police school.
Oh my gosh! And he did have that. Let me run out of here, Max. I got
okay.
I love you. I'm gonna talk to you this afternoon.
All right, take care.
Bye-bye. I love that guy. I love you.